Good evening. It's Friday night. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous coming into your life to give you hope, guidance, and direction as you go through the trauma of divorce and after divorce. Tonight, we're going to talk about difficult communication when you come to an impasse and you're not getting through to your former spouse. There are times when you do have to communicate with them if you have children, primarily. Sometimes it's through business. But there are times, opportunities for you to speak with and communicate with your spouse. So I want to address that today. Now, conflict communication is something that I do 3-hour seminars on. So it's difficult to condense it into some major points and not take a long time. But I do want to stick to about 10 points this evening and give you some direction in that. Let's face the fact that they are not going to change. And for those of you who are sitting back just hoping and praying that this person is going to change, don't waste your energy and your time. I mean, continue to pray for it, but don't waste your energy and time in thinking and anticipating that this person is going to change, because they are not. They're not going to change. So what has to change is your approach in dealing with this person. So let's talk about just a couple of points that can help you. And as always, ask questions, make comments. I would love that. Sorry, I have to look over here because of this camera and how it's positioned. It's a little awkward, but we'll get through the points today. But please, if you have questions, comments, or texts, please feel free to send them. Always wanting this to be a communication. So let's talk about, first of all, the timing. When is the timing when you are communicating with your former spouse? Typically is going to be about the kids, right? Or some business, but typically is going to be about the kids. What is the time? Is there free reign where you communicate back and forth every hour of the day? Or do you have a respectful time for each other that you are communicating? For example, let's decide that we're going to only send text and communicate at 7 o'clock in the morning, before our day starts, before the kids' schedules happen, before school, or whatever time is convenient for you. Maybe it's the night before at 10 o'clock every evening or 9 o'clock every evening. You're going to send each other communication about what you need to know related to the children. Or timing can be looked at in another regard, in that, are you sending texts to him or her in the middle of the workday, which only causes more frustration for both parties, because you're waiting for a response and that former spouse is in the workplace and not able to respond. And then they're aggravated because you're communicating during the workday when they're needing to focus on their work. So timing can be, that simple fix can really make a difference for you. What's the times that you're communicating? You should not have an open communication all day long, unless an emergency, of course. But if you determine, okay, this is the one time during the day we're going to communicate, period, done. Next one. This one has helped so many people. I love it when people come back to me and say, oh my word, that was so helpful and so simple. That is, the communication is only going to be facts. No longer are you going to have emotional communication with your former spouse. No more. It's simply dealing with the facts that need to be known. I will pick up the children 3 o'clock after school. Done. No emotional conversation. Deal in the facts. So, so helpful. Saves you a lot of time and energy too. The power of a third party. That's where mediation comes in. There is something about when you have that third party in the room, the dynamics change. And I've seen this so many times in mediation. So I always speak with the parties individually first. They're alone, and boy, are they pumped up, and boy, are they angry, and this is the way it's going to be, and I'm not changing, and this is my demands, and okay, right. And then I go over and talk to the other person, and they're the same way, perhaps, or they're just determined how things are going to work out. But then you bring them together into the mediation room and you've got a mediator, that third party. Somehow the dynamics change, and I don't quite understand it. Is it a spiritual element? Is it a emotional, where we think we have to behave ourselves better because that third party is there? I don't know. But I do know that it's very effective in many cases. So the power of the third party, if you are having a total disagreement and you have an impasse and you can't get past it, a third party may be the trick. The right third party, not just anyone, not a buddy who's going to be on your side, but you need a person, perhaps a therapist, perhaps a pastor, perhaps a divorce coach, someone who's going to be a mediator, is going to be that third party to direct the conversation and bring it structure. Okay, one other thing, and I know we're going to get more specific to the impasse, but as we're communicating, don't bring up the past. Don't bring up the past. It rarely, if ever, helps. It simply causes more emotions and more opportunity for there to be conflict and lack of communication. Let the past be the past. And then what is really important here? What's really important when you're talking about the children? What's important is that you are co-parenting well. Research shows that your children are going to be less traumatized if you and your former spouse can co-parent well. Very important. And sometimes we have to bite our tongue. And sometimes we have to stand up if it's for our children. It depends, but determine what's really important here. Not that I'm right, not that she's right or he's right. What's really important? What's the matter that we are disagreeing on? And then we need to look at, what is the motivation? Where are you coming from here? Are you trying to control the other former spouse? Is he or she trying to control you? What's the motivation? What's really going on here in this communication that's causing such an impasse? Looking at that can be really helpful. And maybe, quite frankly, we need to be honest with ourselves. I'm trying to control what they do with their parenting time or how they parent the children. Well, I wish you could, but you can't. So knowing what you can control is really going to keep you sane every step of the divorce process and in the communication. And then, of course, 7, which I mentioned, stop trying to control. You can't control what the other person is going to do, what they're going to say, how they're going to parent. You don't have control there. You don't have authority over their life. You may have in the past had input and influence and authority, but you do not now. You don't. So let it go. Stop trying to control. So I know that these can be very, very helpful. One other thing is, don't demand. Don't demand things. It only causes the other person to be defensive, and then you've got a fight on your hands. And you're doing this back and forth dance that's just ugly, and it takes too much energy and too much time. So don't demand, request, ask nicely. Maybe you need to start with some sentences like, I know we both want what's best for the children. That's your approach. What is your approach? Could you change the tone just a bit? I know we both want. So that implies and suggests to your other spouse that, we're allies here. We're not enemies. We're not enemies. And that needs to be established. So be the more mature one here and say, I know we both want what's best for the kids, even if the other parent is doing things that you totally are against. And then maybe you need to make statements like, we need to just start over. We need to start from scratch here. This is a new time. You and I are different. We need to look what's best for the kids, but could we just go from here? Could we just start from here? What do we need to do that? What do we need to do that? So you are going to have those conflicts of communication and that impasse where nobody's budging, nobody's moving, everyone's got their heels dug in the sand, and they're not going anywhere. Well, I have seen many mediations where I thought, okay, Here's a challenge. They're both really determined. So what you have to do is kind of massage it a little and present it in a different way, present it in a different perspective, present it in a question instead of a statement. That can be effective. So you may think that your former spouse is not budging and not moving, but that's not always the case. There are ways in which you can cause them and help them to move, and it's going to be on you, unfortunately. Don't wait for them. Be the mature one. I know we want what's best for the kids. Let's start here. Let's not look in the past anymore. Let's move forward. You and I are tired. We're tired of the fighting and the conflict. I know we've both hurt each other, but let's move forward from here. And maybe there's an apology that needs to be said in there. You can't control theirs, but is that for you? And apologies are tricky because you can put yourself in a victim position, and I don't want to go there into the depth of it. But you know what you've done. You know if possibly an apology is necessary. So you've got this impasse and nobody's budging. Maybe your approach needs to be different. Maybe you need to go through all of these steps, looking at the timing, dealing in the facts, power of a third party, not bringing up the past, focusing on what's really important and what is the motivation for you and for the other party, and stop trying to control each other. It doesn't work. It won't ever work. It'll just continue to cause incredible stress on you. So the next one, I'll stick this verse in here because I love it. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And this includes your former spouse. Life is hard enough. Too much time has been wasted in conflict and hostility. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And if you follow these points and change your approach to just a bit, you may be amazed at how your relationship can change. And then point number 9 is it necessary to come back to mediation? I have completed many post-divorce mediations where they had the judgment of divorce and things weren't working, and they had to come back and renegotiate what they were doing. So is it something that needs to go into mediation? And then finally, regrettably, legal action. Is that necessary? Is it necessary to make a motion to get the courts involved? And that would only be if there are some damaging effects to the children that are going on, some abuse that is going on. There is a time for legal action. I would certainly speak with your therapist, your pastor, or your divorce coach, or a mediator, or myself, which is all of the above, to ask those questions. Is this something I should go back to court with? Don't involve the courts first thing. Goodness, no. It's too costly. It's too just causes defensiveness and anger to the other party. So try these approaches, see if they work. And again, if it's possible, all you can control is you. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, right? Live at peace with everyone. Strive to live at peace because the benefits for you and your children are too numerous to mention. I hope this helps. The next time you find yourself at an impasse with your former spouse on whatever that issue may be, consider these points. And I wish for you peace with your former spouse and also peace for you as you go through the trauma of divorce. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, walking with you every step of the way through the trauma of divorce. Good evening.